Welcome to the Writer's Journey podcast. I'm Michael Laron, a science fiction and fantasy author on a journey to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I pull back the curtain on my writing life and how I'm building a writing career while working a full-time job, raising a family, and attending law school classes in the evenings. You can find show notes for this week's episode, a free starter library of my fiction, and much more at michaellaron.com. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to episode 65. So this is the first episode in my new studio setup. So last week I talked about how I would have a studio update. So it is here. So it is, I don't know what you would call it, D-Day or live time or whatever. But this past Saturday, all the equipment came. So truck rolled up to my house and it had my bookcase and it had my desk, and I basically put those together and got those put together pretty quick. I was actually surprised. I'm not a handy person. Most people say that I'm like anti-handy. So the fact that I was able to put this desk and bookcase together with my own hands is definitely an accomplishment, but the instructions were really easy. So, but I got those put together, and so at that point, it was time to get everything organized and arranged. So I moved everything around, and so I will be ready to start shooting videos very shortly. So I'll give a tour of my studio here on my YouTube channel. My first video back, I'll give you a tour. But basically, it's in my basement. So when you walk down my stairs, you see my computer desk, which is my normal computer desk. It's where I usually write. And my laptop and my monitor are on that desk. And then I've got some shelves above that where I have Bluetooth speakers and some storage and things like that. But then I have another desk that's in the corner of the room. And that desk is the desk that I just got. And that is for YouTube. And so what I did was I have my Blue Yeti on a microphone arm. It's like a boom arm. And then I've got like a shock mount and a nice little new windscreen. And basically it's attached to that desk. And so now when I record my podcast and my YouTube videos, I'm going to record those on my Blue Yeti. We'll see how that looks. We'll see how it sounds. Like I know it'll sound good, but the nice part about the podcast, though, is that the Blue Yeti is far away from my computer now, so you don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about it picking up any odd fan sounds if the computer starts to get overheated and things like that. And I also have a portable sound booth that is coming, I think, today as I record this. I don't know. You won't hear it today, but hopefully next week you'll hear an improved sound quality as well for the videos. But I'm really excited. I've got everything kind of set up how I want it. I did a few test shoots just to see from a composition standpoint how everything looked. And I've got my lights and my tripod set up just where I need them, I think. I may have to move them around a little bit just depending on how things look. But yeah, basically at this point, I'm at the point where I just need to sit down and start shooting test videos just to see how everything looks. Actually pretend to record a video and then take it out and put it in Adobe Premiere and just see how it looks from an editing standpoint and make sure everything looks good. But I'm feeling really excited. Like as I started arranging things and putting things together, as I started putting things on this bookcase that's going to sit behind me, it was like, wow, I actually did this. Like I actually accomplished it. It was kind of a proud moment. So I'm excited to unveil this to you guys, and looking really forward to hearing what everyone has to say. I call it a studio, but it sounds fancier than it is. I mean, it's still an unfinished basement, but I was able to take it and kind of make it my own and do some really cool stuff with it. So in other news, I have been writing a lot actually. So I told you guys that I sent my dictionary/encyclopedia for self-publishing to my editor. So she has that right now, and she should probably get that back to me by the end of the week. So once that happens, I'm pretty excited because I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to publish the ebook and the paperback of that. I'm just going to publish those right away. So it shouldn't take me too long. This book is interesting because like I won't have any editing to do for it. Like after I get it back from my editor, because I did all that up front. But the formatting it's kind of weird. Like it's a challenge compared to some of the other books that I've done, because when you have the letter form, because it's broken out by letter, and each letter, I mean everything has its own format, and so it just I've never written a book quite like this that had a unique formatting need. So that might take me a little bit of time, because I'm going to have to format the ebook differently than I'm going to format the paperback, which I've never had to do before, which is kind of weird. So that might take a little bit of time and ingenuity to figure that out, but I don't think it's anything insurmountable. I like to think I'm pretty good at formatting, and I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. So that will launch here probably within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then I told you how I got this sound booth. So I'm going to try to record an audiobook for this. We're going to see how this goes. I don't know if this is actually going to work. So I'm going to, once I get everything published from the ebook and paperback, and I get the YouTube channel relaunched and all that stuff is kind of on autopilot. What I'm going to do is I got this sound booth, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to see what it sounds like and make sure it sounds professional. And then I'm going to break out the audiobook recording rule book, and just make sure I'm following all the rules. And I'm going to send a test sample to the good folks at Amazon and see if the thing that I record is studio quality. And if it is, then I will record my own audiobooks from now on. And I say that it's going to be it's going to be a complicated thing, right? I mean, audiobook recording is not as easy as it sounds, but I think that with something like this, I think it makes sense for me to do it. I don't know that it makes sense to pay a narrator to read a dictionary. If I can do it, I think it makes sense for me to do it, especially since I've got the setup now and I don't have to worry about certain things that I had to worry about a lot in my last studio. So we'll see how that goes. But I know some of you were excited about that and were asking me about it. So that's coming, and it's going to be coming at you very quickly. Now, I started a new book, and I think I'll be able to talk about it now because I'm far enough into it that I think it's going to be okay. And this new book, basically, I'm calling it Mental Models for Writers. So it's no surprise probably to you guys that I watch a lot of TED Talks. And one of the things that I like about TED Talks is the exchange of ideas. When you watch a TED Talk, at least a good one, and most of them are good, you tend to walk away with the locus of an idea, right? It's usually a what-if question. And I found myself walking away with a lot of these questions, and I found myself looking and searching for TED Talks on writing, and I didn't really find any. And so there were some on art, but they were usually by like literary writers, or there's no self-publishers that have ever done a TED Talk, right? And I thought, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. And so I ended up finding I don't know what it was. It wasn't on TED, but I was watching TED Talks and it led me to it. But it was this conversation about mental models and how people like Warren Buffett and Warren Buffett's second in command, Charlie Munger, and other famous people throughout history have used these mental models in order to help them with their decision making. And I thought it was really interesting. So the premise of it is to take concepts from things like physics and things like economics. So, for example, say you're facing a problem and you're trying to figure out how to solve it, and you apply something from another field. So, like, say if you have writer's block, right, and you don't know how to overcome your writer's block, or better yet, let's say I'm trying to help you with writer's block, and you're listening to this, and I what can I say to someone that has writer's block? Maybe you could apply Newton's laws to that. So I think it's Newton's first law. It's the law of inertia, right? And it's the law that says that an object at rest will remain at rest until acted upon by an unbalanced force. well, how would I use something from physics in this scenario? Well, I know that if you're a writer and you've got writer's block, that's inertia, right? And I know that I have to be that unbalanced force that speaks to you to get you to take action. So if I had to think about that, what would that look like? How could I become that unbalanced force? It's just one example, but it's basically taking all these different ideas from biology, science, and taking them and applying them to business decisions, really. And I think Charlie Munger was one of the ones that really popularized this. And he just talked about how he took learnings from all these other different fields and he applied them in unique ways to help him basically build Berkshire Hathaway, which is one of the most successful business portfolios in the history of business, right? So I thought, that would be interesting. What if you could do that with writing? What if there were mental models and wisdom and advice that we as writers could take and draw upon from other fields and use them to help us with our writing, to help us write better fiction, to help us write more clearly, and to help us make better decisions when it comes to business, when it comes to marketing. And so that's the genesis of the idea. I don't think I did it justice per se, but if you've ever heard of mental models, they're kind of a hot thing right now. I think you're gonna hear a lot more about them. There's a lot of books that are coming on, I think pre-order. They're on pre-order right now, but they're going to be live on Amazon here pretty soon. So this is a topic that I think people really like. It's not necessarily a topic that writers are asking for. So again, here I go with another project that, I'm just writing this book and I have no idea if writers are really going to want it, but I think it's interesting. And so in the book, I'm basically drawing on lessons that I've learned in the past, 5 years or so, because mental models is something that I use every day. I just wasn't aware that I was doing it. So this book is going to be mental models for writers, and it's going to be models that you can use practically, right? I'm not a big theory person. Like, I do talk about theory a lot, but I don't think theory is really anything unless you can practice it. So I'm actually going to talk about times when I've actually used a lot of these mental models. And so I've always found, and this is just my personal opinion, that writing is really no different than problem solving. If you really think about it. Like, I read a book once and it said that when you're driving your car, you have to make a decision on average every 100 feet. So if I get in my car right now and go up to the gas station, and that's a mile away from me, that's what, 5,280 feet. I'm gonna have to make 52 decisions on average from my house to the gas station. And so you think about that, okay, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, because I've got to figure out if am I going to go left out of my subdivision, or am I going to go right out of my subdivision? Am I going to have to pass the little lady that's in front of me, or am I going to just let her go and then wait till she turns? Am I going to let the kid at the crosswalk pass, or am I going to go? Who gets at the stop sign first at a four-way stop, me or the other cars? So you have to make 100 decisions, or a decision every 100 feet. And I thought, well, writing is kind of the same way. Like, on average, what if it was true that you had to make a decision every 100 words? How would that change how you look at the craft of writing, and how would that change the decisions that you have to make? So that's a long ramble on what's going to be this next book, but I'm about 10 to 12, no, actually about 15,000 words into this new book, and I think it's probably going to be a bigger book than I've done in the past. It's probably going to be closer to probably 50,000-60,000 words, but it's moving pretty quick, so I think it's gonna happen pretty quickly. But I'm curious on what you all think from a mental model standpoint. Have you heard of mental models, and is it intriguing enough for you to spend money on a book about mental models? Right. So I'm still going to do it. Because I think it's something that I think it's something that writers need. I think it's the book I also needed to write. But I'm curious on people's opinions, and if this long rambling post is something that intrigued you. So with that, I'm going to end it this week. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. And I think next week I'm probably, if I'm able to do it, we're going to refresh the intro and the outro of the podcast. So you might hear some new music next week when you when you download the episode. So, but thanks for listening, and I'll plan on talking to you next week. Thanks for joining me this week. If you like this episode, you'll enjoy my backlist episodes at michaellaron.com/podcast. For your free starter library of my favorite novels, join my fan club by visiting michaellaron.com/fanclub. If you're a writer and you want to connect with me further, check out my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, for helpful writing advice at authorlevelup.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.